Welcome to the Hockey Writers Union Junction, a weekly show from our Columbus Blue Jackets insider, Mark Scheig, bringing you the latest news, rumors, trades, player grades, game results, and much more. From training camp to the playoffs, from draft day to the trade deadline, he covers everything that happens with the Jackets. So get ready. It's time for another get-together at Union Junction.
Well, hello, hockey fans. I know you missed us. We missed you too. Welcome back to Union Junction. It is already Thursday. It is May the 12th. Combine's just a few weeks away. Playoffs are actively going here. Nice to be back. Nick is back. We're going to be here this week. We're going to actually take a couple weeks off after, and then we'll have two shows coming at you. One pre the Combine, the Wednesday before, and then we'll have one the week after, just reacting to what happened in Buffalo. Maybe we'll have a better sense of the draft and stuff like that. So we'll have a couple good shows, a little bit of break, and then as we get closer to the draft, we'll be back with some more shows for you. But before we get going tonight, just want to tell you that about THW bets. Now, I know that when it comes to bets and stuff like that, you want to be a little bit careful. We always say do things responsibly, but this is a real nice thing here that we just kind of unveiled, where you can go out, and if you're looking for fantasy advice, if you're looking for betting trends, maybe you're looking to take advantage of a parlay or something like that, THW bets is the place to go. Articles drop every day. It's just an opportunity for you to be educated, and that's the biggest part about this. Educate yourself when it comes to stuff like this. We never want to see compulsive gambling or anything like that. Don't just know your limit, stay within it. But if you're looking for some information and education, THW bets is the place to go, isn't it, Nick?
Well, yeah, even if you're not betting yet, even if you're just thinking about betting and you want to get a little bit more well-versed on sports betting, because it's pretty new as a whole thing. So it's just a good way to dip your toes in the water even.
Yeah. Always educate yourself. There's nothing wrong with being informed about things. And that's the biggest thing. Again, THW bets, on the Hockey Writers, we have a link right out there for you. THW bets, the place to go. Well, we got a lot of business to get to, Nick, so let's just jump right into this. First and biggest thing was Tuesday night's draft lottery. The Blue Jackets, we know, came in with the 6th and the 12th pick pre the lottery. And as it turned out, it stayed chalk for the most part, with New Jersey jumping up to number 2 and Montreal holding on to the number 1 pick, which means the Blue Jackets hold 6th and 12. So question for you, are you really surprised that it stayed status quo at all?
Not really. With the way that the odds were reset this year, it really did seem to favor the teams that were lower seed, which at the end of the day is really how it should be. I mean, you should be, it was a little crazy to see a team get knocked out of the play-in round and then get the first overall pick a couple of years ago with the Rangers and Lafreniere. But so it does really make things a little bit more equitable, but there still is that lottery component. 6 and 12 aren't bad picks, but we do get a little bit more certainty on the return for Seth Jones now, which is what the important takeaway for me is for Blue Jackets fans.
Yeah, and right. I mean, that's exactly it. You just hit on the Seth Jones return. So the fact that they got the 12th pick last year, because they flipped first, they ended up getting Adam Boquist out of it.
The 9th pick or 8th pick in 2018.
Yes. And then now this year, getting the 6th overall pick, that's going to be a really good player. And you think about last year, the Blue Jackets picked 5th and 12th and landed Kent Johnson and Cole Sillinger, and the hockey world universally loved that. So now this year, it's 6 and 12. So you're talking about getting 2 of the perceived top 12 picks to be able to add to that. And we'll talk about this in a little bit when we kind of look ahead of the offseason, but there's some interesting options that are there. So is it surprising that it landed this way? No, the odds pretty much said that, it was about, I think it worked out to be like an 85, 86% chance that it would be completely status quo, which it was. The Blue Jackets still have not actually won a lottery. The only time they picked first was via a trade. But how about the New Jersey Devils now? Again, winning another lottery, Nico Hischier, Jack Hughes, and now this year. And with the new rule, since they've gone up, they can only go up twice in a 5-year span. So that's number one for them. Yeah, the lottery bad luck seems to continue, but that doesn't mean that they're off course. It was to be expected. And you said it, the certainty is the biggest part, where now they can create their list. They'll be able to talk amongst about their scouts with which players they might want, what options they have, if they might even want to trade one of the picks, or is how it works. But they have a bevy of options, and that's the biggest thing. They can go 2 forwards, they can go with a forward and a defense, but they're going to be some real good players. And if you can get a guy like Cole Sillinger last year at 12, for whatever reason, the history of the 12th pick, there's been some really good players that have gone. So, if they can nail both of these picks, this reset might be close to over. And not saying that it's over yet, they still got plenty of work to do. But having 5 first-round picks in the last 2 years is nothing to sneeze at. I mean, how many teams would love to be in that position?
Yeah, and winning a lottery isn't everything. Like, if you look back at the number 1 overall picks, the last guy to win a Stanley Cup from that number 1 pick was 2008 in Steven Stamkos, and he had a lot of help around him. So getting number 1, even getting number 2, it's not all that it's cracked up to be, as long as you've got, the management and the mind to build something that really can make a difference as a unit.
That's exactly right. Look at the Edmonton Oilers. They're down 3-2 going into Game 6 without Darnell Nurse suspended for 1 game. They've had Connor McDavid. They've had out of this world Connor McDavid. They've had out of this world Leon Draisaitl. But if the rest of the team doesn't stack up and doesn't pick up the slack, you got to have more than 2 players, even if it's the consensus best player in the world. You have to be able to build around them. And I think that's what the Blue Jackets are able to do to kind of bridge the gap. Like, they might not get the top talent, but I think they're starting to do a good job of making sure that they're getting good players to supplement these guys. Like, to be able to add 6 and 12 to the Johnsons and the Cylinders and the Coolmans of the world, and Patrik Laine and some of the guys that are on the team already, definitely heading in the right direction. And I feel like that the depth is better than some of these other teams that have had number 1 picks as of late, because you have to be able to build around them. I mean, Pittsburgh and Washington eventually did that. I mean, look, when they went number 1, it took them some years before they constantly got to this point. They were able to get there. So patience is required. Just because they didn't win the lottery doesn't mean bad times are coming. The future's still bright, but they have to put the work in.
Yeah, for sure. Good point.
All right, so let's take our first look, Nick, at the offseason ahead. Now that we know 6 and 12 are out there for them, there's certainly a bevy of options. So what are a couple of things now that you are kind of wondering in the back of your head? What are you looking for? What are you interested in seeing the Blue Jackets they may or may not do?
For me, there's 2 obvious options. Number 1 is getting a number 1 centerman. Kent Johnson has been in that discussion, but it doesn't seem very certain, especially since he's been playing on the wing in his first little audition here. So if they decide to draft somebody who can fill that role, like, I don't know if there's very many options available who are like locked in number 1 centerman, but to see if they try and target somebody who can fill that role is something I'll be looking at. And again, top end, high level, number 2 defenseman to sidekick with Zach Werenski.
Okay, so I'll take a couple minutes here. This is actually going to be the storyline for me.
All right, let's go.
There are a lot of options available to the Blue Jackets with 2 number 1 with 6 and 12, right? So you said it. There needs to be, they have to address the center position. They also need to address defense. Now, the top 5 is interesting. Like, you look at Montreal, I think many presume that Shane Wright's going to go to Montreal, and then that's going to be a heck of a night at the Bell Center to be able to pick number 1, announce his name. Good for the Montreal Canadiens.
It'll be madness.
Exactly. $1,000 room hotel, $1,000 a night hotel room if you decide to go to Montreal, by the way. So if you're thinking about doing that, I hope you save some money.
Ole.
New Jersey coming up to number 2, though, is very interesting. They already have Nico Hischier and Jack Hughes down the middle, and Logan Cooley seems to be the kind of consensus guy as being that number 1 center. I got a wild idea for you, Nick. I want to get your reaction to this. The Blue Jackets should call the New Jersey Devils and offer 6 and 12 for number 2, and maybe another piece or two along the way. Blue Jackets get their number 1 center. The Devils then get 6 and 12 to be able to build around Hughes and Hischier. Your thoughts?
I'm not as familiar with Cooley as I would like to be, if I'll be honest. But if he is a lock as a number 1 center, I don't hate it. I really don't. But he's got to be like a sure thing.
Yeah, I mean,
and they got to be certain that the other talent that they want and that they think is attainable isn't going to be there at 6 and 12. You know what I mean? Like it'll either one piece will slide a little earlier, one will slide later.
And that's why I think a trade is not likely. Is I think New Jersey goes at Slafkovsky as the best winger available to add to that. Him and Hughes playing together would be just absolute madness and dynamic. But here's the thing that I'm looking at, because there's a couple things that happen. There's 2 defensemen at the top of the draft that are clearly above everybody else defense-wise. That's Simone Nemec and David Jiricek. By far and away, those are the 2. And a lot of the mocks that I have seen so far indicate that they're both going to go in the top 5. If that is the case and they're both gone by 5, the Blue Jackets at 6 have their choice of centers. Now, at least guys that are playing center right now. And it's an interesting dynamic. And I was on the radio in Columbus on Tuesday morning with Morning Juice, and we actually talked about this. And I said, fans, you should be watching the Winnipeg Ice right now, because they are in the WHL playoffs doing really well, up 2 games to 1 in their series against Moose Jaw. But they have 2 centers that I think would be of huge interest to the Blue Jackets. Matthew Savoie and Conor Geekie. 2 completely different players, but both centers. Geekie is 6'4", already 205 pounds, over a point a game in the WHL. Matthew Savoie is only 5'9", but some of the reports indicate that he's a combination of Patrick Laine and Johnny Gaudreau, if you can imagine that. So, if the Blue Jackets are sitting there at 6, they could conceivably have their choice of a 6'4" center in Geekie, or a 5'9" dynamo offensive player in Savoie. And they might even be able to get the other one at 12 if one of those 2 defensemen are available, because I think they race to the podium and grab one of them if he's there at 6, because they're that good. Like, you're talking about 1B with Werenski type for both. Really good. So that's what's going to be fascinating, is they're going to develop their list. They're, they'll put everything in order. And if a guy is there at 6 that that is maybe 3rd on their list, they're going to go and grab him. That's just the way they do business. They're going to take best available player, and they can do that twice now. And that's why I think the New Jersey's interesting, because they already have the centers. Philadelphia needs everything under the sun and then some, given where they're at just overall. So who knows which way they're going to go. They might not take a defenseman, but they could. So again, I think they'll take one of the defensemen if they're there. If not, Savoie Geekie is something that is very much in play. And I even throw another wild card out there. Brad Lambert is another one that offensive dynamo, but boy, he disappears in games at times. And there's some teams that even have him as a 2nd rounder, and some that have him in the top 10. Like, he's that big of a wild card.
Wow.
So that'll be the biggest thing to watch for me, Nick, is they have so many options available to them. They can elect to trade one of the picks if they get now help. They could try and package them together, maybe to move up, see if New Jersey's willing to take 2 picks instead of number 2, depending on what they think of the top of the draft. But the possibilities are endless, and no matter the outcome, they're in a position to get dramatically better. That's the takeaway.
Do you think Do you think they'll focus on a defenseman first, since it's been so long since they kind of drafted a defenseman in the first round, other than Kuhlman's?
No, here's why. Because I think they'll do best available no matter what. I think that's the way you have to do it. And I think the defense pool, it's that the Blue Jackets is better than some people are making it out to be. Like Kuhlman's is there. Samuel Konosko's on board. Stanislav Slovil is on board. I think they're both going to eventually be impactful defensemen on the Blue Jackets. They're both good in different ways. I know there's some other guys out there too. That Norwegian that we've talked about in the past. Holm is in the organization.
Makarov. He's making some waves.
He's making some waves as well. So give them a little more credit, because I think it's better off than, it's not to the point, if one of those two defensemen is there, they are running to the podium. If Nemec or Jiricek are there, they won't be on the clock for 10 seconds, in my opinion. You take them. They're the best available player at that point, because now you have Werenski, you have one of them, and then you put Gavrikov in a spot. You're set for a good long while with one of those two guys. And here's the perfect opportunity. We have a draft guide, fans. HockeyWriters.com 2022 draft guide. We have those profiles out there. Read them now. Simon Nemec, David Jiricek. Those are two names that you want to get to know. If one or the other is available with the 6th pick, I'll put $1 down right now. I know it's a lot of money. I'm going to put $1 down that they're going to go and grab them real quick. Both of them could be gone in the top 5, though. And if that's the case, then you start to look at those two centers that are sitting out there in Savoie and Geekie. Because I think they can land at least one of them with 6 and or 12. You can actually, there's a chance that they can address both defense and forward in a big time way. So if they get Jiricek and say Geekie, or Jiricek and Savoie, they're going to be the talk. They're going to win the draft outside of Montreal and Shane Wright. To be able to get those two, reset might be pretty close to over. It's that big.
Do you see any chance that they go for like the Finnish connection with like Lambert or Joakim Kamel?
Kamel's an interesting one for sure. He had a great tournament, can shoot the puck. You know that the Blue Jackets and the Finnish connection are going to know about Kamel. I know some of the things that I have heard, that there's been a little bit of concern about him, but I'm not sure how justified that is. I know if we're looking at recency bias, he's certainly getting a lot. I expect him to go in the top 10, top 15 for sure. I don't have a handle yet on how or what the Blue Jackets think of him. Lambert's the interesting one, though, because you know that there's some because you know the track record of the Blue Jackets, right? They want quality guys on the ice and off the ice, and if there's a question about effort or anything along those lines, that, at least in my opinion, would lean me toward the Blue Jackets would have him lower on the list, but I don't know that. But they would know him. So ultimately, if he can answer the effort question and he can answer some of the off the ice questions, he could be in that mix. But there's certainly enough red flags that some teams have him as a second rounder. So it's tough to say without knowing what's on their list.
Maybe we'll have to have some of our Finnish listeners tweet at you.
I had one indicate that they are a little bit lower on him. There was one of the Finnish listeners that said that, just their own opinion. So, I mean, take that for what it's worth. But certainly Kamel's somebody that it's going to be a good player for somebody. Just not sure. If you consider that they want centers and, they can try and grab a defenseman, I'm just not sure. Doesn't fit for me, but we'll see. Maybe they'll prove us wrong. They've done it many times before.
Yeah. Yegor Chinakhov.
Oh my gosh, exactly. Last word on the offseason. Anything else stick out to you as things that we need to watch?
Really, the shuffle in the log jam. Holy jumping. They are adding, like, so many new players are going to be in the mix next year. Somebody's got to come out of that lineup if somebody else wants to go in. So there's going to be transactions. Jarmo loves to make his transactions around the draft. So stay glued to your phone the entire time that the draft is going on.
And a quick story. When I was in Chicago for the draft, I asked him a question on the draft floor, and kind of in the back, and why should fans be interested? And he quipped and said, fans should always be interested in what we're doing, in his traditional Finnish voice. And I just thought that was the most hilarious thing, because he's right. They could be boring as heck and stick with Chalk, or they could, spice it up, trade a couple players, maybe trade a pick. Really depends what opportunity. I know the salary cap's going up by $1 million next year. There's a lot of teams that are in overage bonuses and stuff that they might be able to find a trade to get a player because they have salary cap space. But where's Patrik Laine's salary going to fall in? That's obviously the big one. Both sides seem to want to make it work there, which is good. Chinakhov's going to take the next step. Kirill Marchenko, hello. I know it's a little while that they've announced it, but he's going to be in the fold, probably going to play in Traverse City.
Do you know anything about this new Finnish guy they added?
Oh, Pythia, right?
Yeah.
It's definitely getting some juice. He played really, really well in the Finnish playoffs. Seemed like every day he was scoring a goal or doing something good. So that's another one that is ready to take the next step in North America. So the prospect pool doesn't get a lot of attention, but they're doing some work. Makarov, you mentioned earlier. Pythia is another one. Listen, the logjam is there, and players like Liam Foudy really need to start stepping up. Other guys kind of on the bubble need to start stepping up. If I'm Jake Bean, I'm actually worrying a little bit. Maybe Adam Boquist, not so much, but they have to get stronger. And that's the other thing. How do they address getting stronger too? They can't go into next season the same way they did this season. They have to address that. They have to. They know it. Goal scoring against was a big deal. Both Kekalainen and Larson said that it has to go down. So it's going to be a priority in one fashion or another. And the draft isn't going to help right away. So that they're going to do something. It's just what's going to come up.
And the draft doesn't end on day one. So many gems have come from day 2, rounds 2 through 7.
And they do a nice job of finding some value later in the draft. Hello, Oliver Bjorkstrand. Hello, Elvis Merzlikins. Hello, others.
Gavrikov.
Gavrikov,
yeah, so many
especially
guys.
Late. Yes. They take full. The team captain was a second-round pick. I knew he wasn't picked in the Kekalainen era, but they've done a good job in being able to find guys later in the draft. So just because day one is over doesn't mean that their business is over. They're going to find some good players, and they've proven that they can do it. So, Nick, we have to end with shenanigans. It's been way too long. So I figured this week we'll do some shenanigans where we're going to play a little game with the roster, and then we'll each share a question, and the other one will have to answer it on the spot.
Okay.
I have got the roster up here of players, and it's just we're going to play a game called Here or Gone. So I'll name a player. And either say that they're going to be here, or they're going to be gone, and then maybe say why or why not, or 1 or 2 sentences, something that just sticks out about the player for you.
And you mean in September they won't be here?
As in, come training camp, they will not be here.
Excellent.
So let's start hot and fresh. Emil Bemstrom.
Oh, here. Because I don't think anybody's going to take him.
I think here as well, but boy, he has got to start showing the potential. He's playing in the Worlds, so that's something you definitely want to see how he does with Sweden there. But boy, he has got the logjam. If you don't separate yourself, you're going to be squeezed out. He's right at the top of the list.
Yeah.
Oliver Bjorkstrand.
Oh, he'll be there.
Unless a trade opportunity comes.
Unless it's a wild deal.
Right. And it can come out of nowhere too. So
exactly.
99% he's going to be there. I mean, he's just still, he struggled a lot and is still getting better. But hey, if someone calls and offers up a center.
Well, he just had the best season of his career.
That's it.
And well, he was still minus 35, which I think is hilarious.
He knows that's got to get better, and that's quite an anomaly too.
It is.
But then the whole team struggled defensively. Let's be real.
Yeah.
Okay. Yegor Chinakhov.
Oh, he'll be there. No question.
No question about that. How much better does he get in year 2?
Let me see here. 7 goals this year. Does he crack 15 next year? 15, maybe 20? Does he go that far? Depends on where he is in the lineup. But I do think we see a step forward. I don't think it's gigantic. I would say 3 or 4 years from now is when we'll see Yegor at his best. But he'll get more comfortable. He'll get better.
How about the Russian line eventually of Voronkov, Chinakhov, Marchenko?
I don't know if we see that. I don't know. It seems like a gimmick thing. I don't know if Lars will fall for it, but we'll see.
Why not? I mean, you can put a top 6 together, play them as a third line, a scoring third line at that. And Voronkov. Listen, Voronkov is going to be a beast when he gets here. He is a pain in the neck and somebody that Blue Jackets fans are going to love when he arrives. When I say that, he's got 1 more year left and then he's expected to come over, but the fans are going to love him. Mark.
Okay, Mark. So we talk about the center position. Okay, we got Roslovic, Sillinger, Kent Johnson, maybe Corrali, Boone Jenner, even Voronkov. So we talk about them needing help at center, but they've got lots of pieces there. If one of those guys steps up,
but not their top center yet.
So many of those guys are going to have to go. Isn't that wild? When you think about it,
do they? Well, is Boone
look at the guys on the wings too. There's nowhere to slide to the wing. Well, Jenner will be there, but you know what I mean? Some of those guys are going to have to get shipped out so they can make room for those top centers.
Well, Nyquist is an unrestricted free agent after this coming season. So that'll be an interesting scenario to talk about. And then, it'll work itself out. Do we even know Kent Johnson starts with the Blue Jackets in the fall? Do we know that?
Oh, that's wild. That's a wild thought, Mark. I don't know if you can guarantee it.
I'm just saying.
I never even had that thought, but now that you mention it with the log jam.
And if he's still trying to adjust to the league and stuff like that, I mean, you have to earn your keep.
I bet he starts, but I wouldn't be surprised to see him go to Cleveland. Make a stint down there.
I mean, you got Voracek. That's why I mentioned Bjorkstrand trade possibility.
Yeah.
Voracek, Laine, Bjorkstrand, Nyquist. There's your top 6 wingers, no?
Yeah.
Where's everyone else go? That's the crazy part about it. That's why this thing can get really wild, in my opinion. All right, let's move on here. Justin Danforth.
He'll be there. They like him as a scrappy
bottom 6 guy. They do like
guy.
him. He can play anywhere in the bottom 6. Proved it. Love his story. Masterton nominee. Fantastic.
He's like the dream Blue Jacket story in terms of tenacity.
Right. Here's one that they kept up at the end of the season and got in the lineup a little bit, but was scratched when there was some health. Brendan Gaunce.
He gone.
Yeah, I
don't know. Is he expired? Does he have another year?
Well,
he won't be in Columbus. He'll be in Cleveland if he's still in the organization.
That's what I'm wondering. Does he end up in Cleveland if he's still with the organization? Let's actually pull up
the UFA this year.
See, there you go.
So I think he's just gone. UFA this summer. 28 years old. You kind of know what you got with him.
You kind of know what you got. He'll provide depth somewhere. Just not.
He'll find a gig. He'll find a gig.
I think we can agree that Boone Jenner is going to be there. He's the captain. He's the glue. They love him in that role. My question is, what's the ideal role for him?
I like him as a center. I think I would love him as a 2 or 3 center.
That's exactly. I think 3 would be the most ideal situation.
Yeah.
With Sillinger and then fill in the blank to get a top guy.
Well, yeah, you hope Sillinger becomes the top 6.
Really talking. Yeah, Sillinger's on a great path.
He is good first year.
Very good first year. As an 18-year-old, it's nothing short of impressive. It's just now how's he going to build on it? That's going to be the question with him. We talked about Kent Johnson a little bit. Does he start with the Blue Jackets? Yes or no?
I think yes. He's a very motivated young man. He's going to go hard this summer, and he'll be ready for training camp. Whether he can play consistently through the first 20 games and sticks in Columbus is my question mark with him.
Yeah, I don't see how he doesn't, but don't discount the possibility of a little bit of time in Cleveland, depending on how it goes. I think we can agree that Sean Corrali is going to be there, big part of
Oh
the
yeah.
room. No question about that. But did we see his best last season? Is there any more that he can provide?
I don't think so. He's great. He's excellent in that role. That's why I think he'll plateau there for a little bit where he was
Because
last
he
year.
can go up and down the lineup too. He played with a bunch of different wingers. He was able to adjust his game, had career highs. Just not sure. You don't count him to be like all offensive all the time, but he plays the important minutes. I think his role's pretty well defined.
And he seems to like playing that role.
Oh, he does. He embraces it for
So
sure. I think a lot of people can look up to him. So he's pretty good there. I think we know the answer to this one, but still ask the question, Patrik Laine.
Oh, he's there. Yeah.
How much does he get the full 8 years? Does he get something less? Where are you at on his contract?
I think they make the big swing and do 8 years. I think that's just a good move. It'll at least be more than 6.
Yeah. I think 6 field. I could even see 4, but I think the Blue Jackets will try for 8. It's just a matter of what Laine wants to commit to. But they both want to get the work out. So, but it'll be interesting to see where it actually lands. There's another one, Carson Meyer.
Oh, he'll be around. I don't think he'll start with the Blue Jackets, but he'll be around.
But I think he'll be great depth with the Monsters in one of the first call-ups.
Yeah, he looked good.
He did, in a limited role, he did fine.
Yeah.
Gus Nyquist. The question that I've got here is, do the Blue Jackets even consider an extension, knowing that he'd be eligible for one once free agency opens? He's got 1 season left.
I think they look at how big of a part he is of the locker room. And if he's willing, well, obviously, yeah, but you also have to pair that with, is he willing to take on a mentorship role and like steward these guys for the rest of his career? Or is he going to want a Stanley Cup? And I think they'll try and make both sides meet.
He's on record as saying he loves it there. He believes in the direction. So he wants to be there. It's just now, can they get it to fit with everything that's going on? Jack Roslovic next.
Yeah, he'll be there.
I tend to agree with that.
Unless they can trade him for something very valuable. He's on the fringe where they could move him, but I don't think they get the return they want.
I think he did enough at the end of the year, for them to, he's done great work in the community. He was named got the award for the community MVP. He's really, ever since that Calgary game that they talked about, he's embraced it. There were some questions earlier in the year for sure, but I think he's going to be there. The question is, can he get to a point where he is a dependable, consistent two-way center? If he can, that's great. But the question is, will he get to that point? Cole Sillinger, how far does he go in year 2?
He definitely goes up. I think he touches 50 points.
Second line center.
But that's like a max I would put him at.
It's a lot to learn in that second year, but yeah, you give him the opportunity.
Well, that's true. There are normally a bunch of drawbacks in sophomore years. But
yes. That'll be the interesting part to see how if there's a sophomore slump or how that'll go. Now, here's somebody that we haven't talked about at all that I am thrilled to hear that he's playing in the World Championships. He's been on personal leave. He's dealt with some tragedy and an injury. Alex Texier, where does he slot in next year?
That's one of those other pieces, right? Like he's so young still.
Yep.
So he's going to be a part of that core moving forward.
And now is he a center though? He can play. He's demonstrated he can play both. And when he was on for that little bit of time, He's one of
Yeah.
the best players.
So another center guy who could play center. Wild. No, he'll
Very
he'll
well.
be on the wing. I think he'll slot in on the wing again.
He's one of the best penalty killers too. He's one of their most important players before things happen. So
He was on a roll. Finally, we were seeing the Texier that we were promised.
that's it. That's why they traded for him. Or they traded with the rights to pick him.
Yeah.
What do we expect from Jake Voracek year 2?
I would say more goals.
Yeah.
He had 6 this year. I would say once some of the other scorers on the team start scoring,
Okay.
like we're going to see a little more confidence from Sillinger and some more goals from Patty. So I guess that's assists, isn't it? That's more towards assists, but
Yep.
I think I don't know. I feel like he'll score more. He'll do it.
Yeah, I know he knows that. He knows he wasn't good enough in that area. Still had an impact, but I think that second year in here, I think we'll get better things from him in that regard. So we'll go through the defensemen real quick since we're running a little short on time here, but we'll rapid fire these guys. We know Zach Werenski's going to be there. That's an obvious one. I think we can agree Andrew Peak is, made one of the biggest strides this past season and is going to be a big part of it, especially on the right side. I think we can agree Vladislav Gavrikov is somebody that they want to keep, that, he just lets us play on the ice, do the talking, big in the room. Everyone's very complimentary of him. So I guess the question I want to throw by you, I'll name the rest of these guys. And if there's a couple things that stick out here about Hiragon, tell me. Gavin Bayreuther, Jake Bean, Nick Blankenberg, Gabriel Carlson, Jake Christensen, Dean Kukin. Anything stick out to you about any of those guys, Nick?
Some of them are they don't really have that one defining trait that would keep them around. So I'm talking about Kukin and Bayreuther. So Bayreuther, I think, will be around simply because of contract.
Yep.
I think Kukin's out because he's a UFA this year.
Yep.
I mean, Bean and Boquist for me are they're so similar in player type that eventually you're going to have to pick one of them.
And I would pick Boquist if I had to choose.
Yeah, because he's got the generally higher ceiling. A lot of people think that. So
yeah,
and he's younger.
Both have to get stronger. They have to. Have to. Now, is Nick Blankenberg a top 4? And how great of a signing was that?
Wow. Was it ever? That blew me. You watch this kid, it's this is his 7th NHL game or whatever. What?
Yeah.
Making great plays. He's got a great mind. Great pickup. So they got to re-sign him. How long do you think they re-sign him for?
Probably a couple years, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean he chose Columbus. He mentioned it was cool meeting Rick Nash among other things. And I think he's certainly going to come back. He's an RFA. He certainly made a good first impression. Got to get stronger though, and he'll take the offseason to do that. Jake Christensen is the one that I think we need to watch, because I think he's got the skill set. He clearly has some things that he needs to work on. He's actually going to train with Kent Johnson in Vancouver.
Oh,
he's the one that I'm going to watch though, because he was named second team AHL All-Star. He actually led the Monsters in scoring as a defenseman this year. Okay, so guy's got offense, got to work on the defensive game, but he's somebody I think could eventually stick and make an impact. Gabriel Carlson is the one that I'm not sure about. He's an RFA, had plenty of opportunity, only got in on occasion. Scratched some of the time, played bottom pair some of the time, former first round pick. How much time does he have left? I'm not sure on that one.
Well, yeah, I think what kind of hurts him there is that he was a first round pick.
Mm-hmm.
There's always expectations on a first round pick, whether it's warranted or not.
Yep.
But he's also one of the bigger guys. He doesn't bring the weight. He's not the heft, but he's 6'5"?
Yeah.
So, I mean, you hate to see that size leave, but it's not like he really threw the body a lot. wasn't more. They're more physical guys.
Could be one of the bottom pair. They could elect to keep him because it probably won't take much salary wise to do it. That would be the one argument that he could still be around. He's shown flashes. It just has not been consistent enough. That's the thing. He has to show he's ready to take the next step to get a bigger role. Real quick on the goalies, we know Merzlikins is the guy. Do they bring Joonas Korpisalo back? Yes or no?
It seems something that they might do.
They might do it,
but
you can roll it out.
I don't think so.
He's going to heal his hip. He said that at the end of season availability. But there's a chance. Not saying 100%, but there's certainly a chance that they'll bring Korpisalo back. I don't think Berube's coming back. Tarasov's an interesting one, low-key interesting, just because he's recovering from injury, and we still don't have full clarity on the Russian situation. Just saying. So I would expect him to be possibly the number 2 going into next season, but he needs a new contract, and let's see how that all plays out, though. Interesting stuff there, Nick. So let's end with Shenanigans. I've got a question for you, and I think that most of you saw this out on Twitter. Washington Capitals introduced a food that was amazing looking at it. It was a fried chicken sandwich on a cinnamon roll. My question, Nick, would you eat this said sandwich? It was literally a Cinnabon cinnamon roll as the buns, fried chicken sandwich. Yes or no?
100%.
Oh, 100%. It's 1,600 calories of glorious artery clogging, sugary fried goodness. How could you say no to that?
That's so many calories, but
That's
I love it.
A ton of calories. They even offered free samples to the media there, and I was jealous.
Love it. Something's like more patriotic than the Stars and Stripes themselves.
That's exactly right, and that is one of them. Now, do you have a question for me? I heard you did.
I've been toying with this one for a while. I don't know if it's as controversial as I would like. I know we've got some beef with Stinger because he had never played, he or it has never played Wordle. You guys had a little back and forth about that.
I did.
So
I
my question for
yeah,
it was a little ridiculous. Trying to be a hipster.
That's right.
So my question for you is Stinger or Boomer? Is this something you're allowed to answer?
I can answer it. It's our show.
Okay.
He doesn't play Wordle. That means a lot to me. And I think a lot of people miss Boomer. Give Stinger credit. Got his place. But if you're going to make me choose, give me Boomer all day long.
Yeah, there we go. I'd love to see Boomer on skates.
Right? Skating around and then shoots a cannonball off.
Oh, man.
That would be pretty epic.
Yeah.
So Stinger, if you're watching this, I'm sorry, pal, but you got to play Wordle. That's how you get on my good side. Anyway, great show. Member, fans, THW Bets is out there. Get informed. A lot of good stuff. Fantasy, betting tips, information, all on the hockeywriters.com. We have our draft guide as well. And I said, we're going to take a couple weeks off here. We'll be back first Wednesday in June. We'll tape and then release on Thursday. That Friday and Saturday, which is the first weekend in June in Buffalo, that's when the prospects that are not still in the playoffs, and possibly some of the Russian situation, that has yet to play out, but will be up there doing their fitness testing, meeting with teams. I'll actually be at the event live, and we'll be able to talk to some of the prospects. So we'll have a pre-combine and a post-combine show. So first and second Wednesday in June, we'll tape those. That's when we'll be back. And then from there, when news breaks, we'll be around and we'll make sure that you know exactly what's going on with the Blue Jackets. Nick, any final words?
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
See you in a couple weeks.
See you in a couple weeks. Now, fans, thank you for joining us this week. Enjoy, the great weather is coming up here. As May moves on, we're getting close to summer. Enjoy the playoffs. We will be back first week in June here in Union Junction. So until then, take care of yourself. Have a good night.